and welcome to the media freakout tag. I am wearing red because it is an alarmed colour. I am freaking out that it's already June, but let's get into the questions and see how my reading is going. I also track my reading progress, by the way, on the twice a year tag, which is a tag I created that's supposed to keep you on track with your goals as well, every April and August. So I do those and I do this tag, so I kind of try and connect the dots throughout the year and keep myself on track. Doesn't always work, but we hope for the best. So without further ado, here is question 1, and that is the best book that you have read so far in 2024. And I've had a lot of books that have been like okay or 4 stars. I haven't had many 5-star reads at all unless they've been rereads, which is why I want to say Stormfront by Jim Butcher, because rereading this was an absolute delight, and getting back into Dresden's world of wizard, detectives, magic and supernatural crimes, I loved it so much. And the fact that I have stalled on rereading all of these books up until the point where I can continue the others that I haven't read yet, I'm so annoyed at myself. I think committing to doing a whole spoiler chat with Dave after finishing every book is fun and I love it, but at the same time it is a lot of work that I've put on myself. So will I continue doing those talks? I'm not sure. They're so much fun to do, but they're holding back my reread. But my favourite book so far has been a reread this year, so here's hoping to better releases and better books in the second half of 2024. And of course, as soon as I hit record, my neighbours have started mowing their lawn. Question 2 is the best sequel you have read so far in 2024, and if you know me at all, you know that I love Wolfsong by TJ Klune, and Heartsong came out in February, and I loved this book. I gave it also a 5 stars like the other 2 in the series so far, and Brother Song is slated for a release in July, which I'm really looking forward to. So the fact that one of my favourite books that I've newly read happened in February, it gives you an indication of how my reading has gone this year, which is not great, but at least I had Heartsong to see me through. Question 3 is a new release that you haven't read yet, but you want to. And embarrassingly, I forgot that I got the audiobook for Late Bloomer, which is supposed to be a sapphic romance about a girl who wins a whole bunch in the lottery, realizes that everyone she knows is trying to tap her on the shoulder for money only. So she leaves where she's living, buys a flower farm, and then tries to live in a cabin there and do her art just uninterrupted. But the girl who is running the flower farm is like, how dare you buy out my flower farm? It is mine and I love this place. So it's a romance between these two. It's like an opposites attract romance. I just forgot that I had that on audio, and I think it came out in like March, maybe May. Either way, another book that came out in May that I haven't started yet is Dragon Rider by Taran Matharu, and this one is about 2 characters from different walks of life that get caught up in stealing a dragon egg from whatever citadel, and then when they're fleeing the citadel they have to somehow nurture this dragon egg and also learn magic. That sounds cool. I think they also flee the city on dragonback, which is even cooler. So I'm looking forward to a potentially high fantasy with a lot of action and dragons. How cool. But then to slow it down, I've got a cozy fantasy in The Honey Witch, and then also A Tempest of Tea and Blood, which are 2 releases from the first half of the year as well. A lot of people have read these already, but I'm just behind. I'm behind the 8 ball, but I hopefully will make up for it in the second half of the year. And speaking of the second half of the year, that leads me very easily into question 5, which is what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? Obviously, I've already talked about Brother Song by TJ Klune, which is the 4th book in the Green Creek series, which I feel like I'm not going to be okay after, and that is at the end of July, so expect me to just be inconsolable at that point. But if I am able to read after finishing Brother Song, I'm also looking forward to The Phoenix Keeper, which is I think sapphic cozy fantasy or sapphic romance cozy fantasy about a magical menagerie zoo, and obviously the Phoenix Keeper is really passionate and wants to bring all the phoenixes back to life, and you know, she's got a passion about it, so she wants everyone else to share that. And then she's got, I think, a rivalry with one of the other keepers at this magical zoo, and I think it's just the setup for something magical, flirty and cute, and I really hope that it's my thing. Another author is Jen Lyons that I personally love. Usually she writes queer stories as well, because the Ruin of Kings series is featuring queer characters. So moving on from The Phoenix Keeper will be her new release, and I think that's called The Sky is on Fire. I believe it is a standalone fantasy. I could be wrong, but I believe it is. And that one comes out possibly in August as well, but I could be mistaken. I know I've pre-ordered the audiobook, so fingers crossed that I can get to that one ASAP. And then of course, because I like Brandon Sanderson's series, I am very much anticipating Stormlight 5, but that is not until the end or during November sometime. So I've got a little bit to get to that one. And then we go from exciting things that are coming out in the second half of the year to most disappointing things that I have read this year, because question 5 is the biggest disappointment. And I have 2 books that I want to talk about. One of them is Crucible of Chaos Chaos, which I talked about in a reading vlog and then also in my April wrap up, because I love Sebastian de Castell, or I thought I did, but I feel like he can't now be called my favorite author anymore after having some misses with his works that have come out recently. So unfortunately this was a DNF at 64 pages, and usually I love the rhythm and the tone of his stories, but I just could not stand the main character in this story to the point where I wanted to poke my eyes out. So I'm like, I can't deal with him. I'm not going to read this anymore. And then I also actually finished this book, and it's The Atlas Complex, even though I did want to put it down at several different points. And I have a whole spoiler-free review that goes into spoilers at the end about this book, because I feel like since it's the third in a series, I can't say exactly what I didn't like about it without saying exactly who I mean in terms of the characters and the story arc and everything. So this was a 2 stars, and the other books in the trilogy were both 4 stars. So that gives you an indication of how disappointed I was. Then we've got question 6, and that is biggest surprise. I've had some negative surprises this year in the sense that I've thought books would be great and they've been okay. Like Court of Wanderers I thought would be amazing, but it got a 3 stars. And then Foundry Side I thought would be a 4 or above, and it got a 3 stars. So I want to say that the biggest surprise with a positive spin was Fence Volume 6, because I was expecting to enjoy this, but I feel kind of passionate about it. And that's because the characters in here are starting to come to fruition and interact a bit more, and you get that sense of yearning in this book. And oh my goodness, I just really want these characters to get together, but it's doing the classic slow burn and building them up, which I'm such a sucker for. But at the same time, it's so painful because you just want them to get together. I just, really enjoy this series, and it's so quick because it's a graphic novel series, but also it means that I've got to wait so much longer between each release because they are bind up volumes of the single release issues. So I'm like, oh, I am contributing to my yearning for this series because I have to wait so long in between each release. So this was very worth it. I gave it, I think, 4 stars when I read it, and I'm really excited about rereading the series again when Volume 7 comes out. I've got no idea when that happens, potentially early 2025, but yeah, I'm excited about this series and I just think it's great. Question 7 is favorite new author. And I don't necessarily say that this guy is my favorite new author, but he was also a nice surprise. So I guess it could have gone in the previous question as well. But for me, that's going to be James Clear. And he wrote Atomic Habits, which is a self-help book about establishing better systems in your life in order to achieve your goals. And I think that the fact that this guy sold like 15 million copies of his book should have been a giveaway that it was going to be pretty decent in terms of a reading experience. And I've also read a bunch of his blog posts and stuff, and it's just personally inspired and motivated me in order to look at my routine and to see where I can stack different habits on the back of other ones, and to see what I want to do with my life, which seems like a very broad statement, but by changing like 1% of things in my day to day, it means I can, take a new path towards where I want to be eventually in the future. And I just think that reading this book had so many benefits, and no matter what, I feel like you can take something away from it, which is, for a self-help, kind of what you want. And that's why I want to say he's my favorite author, because I've read obviously Atomic Habits, and then I've also read a bunch of his blog posts, and I think he's got workable suggestions, and I really am excited to apply those to my everyday life. I wouldn't say he's a favorite author, but he's a favorite author in terms of this question. Then question 8 I find really like such a struggle to answer every single time, because it is, what is your newest fictional crush? This isn't a crush because I find that weird. Like, they're fictional, but I think this character is cool, so that is what I'm going to substitute into this question, and that is Raina from Can't Spell Treason Without T, because she is a Queensguard and she's got all these like assassin abilities, but she also can just bake and make tea, and she's got this cool, calm and collected persona. So I just admire her and think she's awesome because she's versatile. So that will be my answer for this question. Not a crush, but someone I think is cool. Then we pivot into question 9, which I could kind of use Raina for as well, but it is newest favorite character. So I might go for Fence again and say Nicholas and Seiji, who are the main focus in the Fence series, and they are learning fencing at college, and you find out in this a little bit more about Nicholas's backstory and Seiji's motivations, and just to see more of these characters fleshed out was really rewarding to me personally, and I really just like their rivalry interaction too. It's just so great. All right, I'll stop raving about Fence now. Question 10 is a book that made you cry. Wolf Song. Even on my reread, I cried. I also cried in Raven Song and Heart Song. So you can see why this series is going to break me when the next book comes out in July. I'm just such a sucker and a sap for found family and emotional support and connection, and that series has it in abundance. I would highly recommend. Question 11 is a book that made you happy, and I would say Can't Spell Treason Without T, because this was exactly what I needed at the time I was reading it, and I needed something something in between a like big epic fantasy, and also because I was in almost a reading slump, I didn't know what I could pick up next. And this had just the right balance of coziness and of driving force of the plot. And also it was a really readable book. Like it took me maybe 2 or 3 days to finish, which for me is like light speed. So the fact that I finished it so fast and I just got sucked into it, the tone of it and the vibe of it and the fact that I could read it quickly meant that it made me happy. It felt very satisfying to finish because I finished it fast. Then question 12 is the most beautiful book that you have bought this year, and distressingly it is Crucible of Chaos. Distressingly because I didn't like this and so I'm going to get rid of it. But I love the symmetry of the cover design, I love the intricacy of it too, and I love more illustration focused covers. So the fact that I didn't like this, I'm just so annoyed about. I wish I could hold up some kind of special edition for this question, but I'm very frugal when it comes to buying books now, and I'd probably go for either the Kindle version or go to my library, or if I've read it already, then I'll buy it. So I'm buying a lot less because of risks like this. I thought I would love this book and then I put it down. So now I have book buying trust issues. And then the last question, number 13, is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I am doing a video about my entire TBR, which lists a bunch of books that I want to read before the end of July. So I'll probably go over what I've got left in my July to be read video. So that is part of this question, I guess. To shame myself, I might also include in this question that I need to finish the trilogy for is Robin Hobb, because I've completely and utterly paused my reread of this. And I love this series because it makes me so emotional and I love all of the characters so much. So I need to get back to it and finish the trilogy, ideally. I really want to read on to the Live Ship Traders, but at the moment, instead of thinking about all of the books across Robin Hobb's series that I need to reread, I'm just gonna pull it back and go, Beck, you need to finish the Farseer trilogy. That is what I want to do. You will also notice behind me on my to be read cart that technically I've read them, so they're not to be read unread books, but they are books that I want to reread, which is the Stormlight Archive before Stormlight 5 comes out in November. So reading Robin Hobb and reading Brandon Sanderson are my challenge for the end half of 2024. If I could also continue my reread of the Dresden Files, that would be amazing. So this is me like psyching myself up to do that. And then also I would really like to reread, oh, this is very shiny, reread Fourth Wing and also Iron Flame, because the third book in this series comes out in January 2025. So if I can get to these in like December, that would be fantastic of me. But that is it for this mid-year book freakout tag. I have accomplished a fair few goals this year, but I also have a lot stacked into the second half of the year, which personally I'm intimidated by, but also excited about. Let me know if you've got a whole stack of books on your TBR pile. I would love to know, but thank you so much for watching this video. I'll come chat to you down below in the comments and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.